When you're working with formatting on your worksheet for dates, you need to be aware of who the audience is, because in different parts of the world, people arrange the dates differently. For example, in the US, we tend to do what you see down here in B9, the month, the day, and the year. In some countries, it's the year first, some it's the day first, then the month and the year, or it's all different types of variations, so be aware of your audience in the way that you're going to show that to them. You also will have your preferences, and what's really interesting about Excel here is that I can also create custom ways to work with dates, so we're going to show all that by the end of this. I also downloaded a monthly community event planner from the Microsoft site. It's a template. I did take off a couple more tabs or worksheets here, and I lightened up the background a little bit so it'll be easier to see what we're working with. So I'm going to zoom in to this area right here. Let me move this over quickly. And you'll look here, date column, we see the date here, and up here it's referring to it as a date. One of the quickest ways to work with or change to a date format is just simply up here in the numbers section on the home tab. Hit the down arrow and you'll see short date, which is what we're looking at right now. There's also long date that brings in the day of the week. This is very useful when you're putting information in and then you go, you know what, I need to know what day of the week that is. And you can just simply change it to long date. It does spell it out a little bit longer. It is long date, but at least you'll know. So when I click on it, I get all these hash signs, the pound sign. That means that the field is not wide enough to see all the information. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that up a little bit right up here. So now I know it's a Tuesday, July 1st of 2014 is a Tuesday now. So very simple ways to change that based on the drop down for the numbers section. Okay. Now, when you're working with dates, like I said, you can have lots of different variances. So not only can I change this from short to long, but I can also go into the drop down for number format. So I'm going to do that. And it defaults to date because that's what we're working with. And here's the short date, and it gives you a sample. Here's the long date, and it gives you a sample. But you can also take off the year. So now it's going to go month and day. Back to that type of format. Another format, July 1st, and the year, but only with 2 places for it. So the last 2 digits of the year, the 1st of July. So here we're moving the day in front of the month with no year, day, month, year, and it's the abbreviation of that month. And you'll see that again with picking up the 01 instead of just 1. So all of these things come into play, and this is all in the date section of your number tab for format cells. So see lots of different changes here. We can even add time and military time. You can also just indicate the month. However, I'm not sure how it shows June or July. They're the same initial. That with the year, and then we have the standard, and then another view on that as well. So you have these options in here, and those are great, especially when you're just trying to change to be a certain type of look. You just drop that down. You can also right click on that cell, and as you go into format cells down here, you're going to get the same type of section to go to. Okay, so that's good to know that you can change those things, and you have a lot of options just quickly choosing them. However, when you're working with dates, especially in fields that are not set up for date, you're going to see a typical pattern of things, and then I want to show you how to customize it as well. So here I am at B40, and right up here I have general, so it doesn't see anything as a date. So I'm just going to put in 7 space 1 space 2014 and hit enter. Okay. Now it doesn't do anything with it because it's just general. It's just numbers. Okay. It doesn't know what to do with it. if I drop this down and I look at short date, notice it's not really changing anything. It's just now recognizing it as a date, but there's no real change. So let's try this again. Let me put in 7.1.2014, hit enter, okay? And I click in there and I choose short date, and it doesn't really change the formatting, okay? Now let's try it where we change it to short date first, and then I put in 7.1.2014 and I hit enter, and it keeps it as well. So just be aware that, you know, if it's not specifically showing as a date format like 7/1/2014, you know, it's just going to keep it. It's not going to worry about it as anything other than a date unless we change it. But here, as soon as I put in the forward slashes, it recognized it as a date. So two things to remember here. Make sure that you're using forward slashes, or the other option is to use the dashes. And as long as you do that, your formulas, your references will always recognize it as a date. So make sure you use one of those two items. Otherwise, you risk your formulas and other things not working quite right. All right, so now let's try another thing here. Let's do 2014/1/7 and then /1. And remember, it's starting off as general. I hit enter, and it does see it as a date. So these forward slashes indicate that it will change it to date, however you want to do that. So let's try a dash. And see it transform that into forward slashes. So the forward slash or a dash will automatically change this to a date format. So just something to be aware of. Now, what if you wanted it to recognize the date like it did here, but not reverse it, not change it around to this type of format? Okay, so what I want is 2014, and then I want the month, and then I want the year. Okay, and I want it to recognize it as a date. Well, let's go take a look at dates again. And do we have anything that is year, full year? So 2014, not just 14 and then a number and then a date. So we don't see anything like that. So what would you do if you want to keep this format and you don't want to just keep throwing it in there and it's a general number? You want it to recognize it as something to work with, like in a date format. Okay. Well, you can go to custom, and this will give you a clue about creating things in Excel and actually lots of other software. But if you look in custom and you start to work through date fields, you'll see M for month, D for day, Y for year. And then it has different ways that it can break it out, you know, even hours in here. And then it just keeps going on and on. It can be a lot more information than you want to know. But as you get into formulas, these are things that could work very well. So what do? Well, we could create our own where we want to change this. I'm going to go back. Year, forward slash. I want the month. And I'm going to give it 2 places because sometimes it can be 2 characters. Forward slash and then 2 days because it can be 2 characters as well. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone to the custom section and I've created this, and I click OK, and it sees it as custom. Okay, so what would happen if I chose this? Custom's not there. Okay, so I go to more number formats, go to custom, and I go all the way to the bottom because I created it, and I say I want it to look like that. And look what it's going to do. Because it already recognized it as a date, it now is going to format as year, month, and day. So if you need a quick turnaround of changing something, or you want to format your spreadsheet, your worksheet to behave this way, then you can create those things. Click OK, and it will conform it to that format. So hopefully we've given you a better idea of how to work with dates, and also if you need to customize it, some ways that you can make that happen.